Welcome, everyone, to Spotlight India, our regular look at the wonderful films of the wonderful India. Now, we're doing something a little bit different here. From now on, it's not just going to be Kicking the Seat presents Spotlight India. It's going to be IndieRise and Kicking the Seat present Spotlight India. Now, you might be wondering, what is IndieRise? Well, fortunately, I have my lovely and talented co-host Shashwat Mookherjee here, my guide on all things Indian film, to tell us about not only the film we're talking about today, which we'll get to in a second, but also IndieRise. Shashwat, how are you? And what is IndieRise, and how can people get involved?
Well, thank you, for that lovely introduction. It was a very good introduction, and thank you again for having me on the show. And now that it's like Indie Rise and Kicking the Seat presents, so it's very exciting that like how this show started and now how it is kind of a co-production this way. So it's very exciting, and I'm excited for the other episodes. And Indie Rise is basically a community for all film industry professionals to to find their space and to find people to collaborate with. It is a community which we are it's starting out, and we are having already a couple of some prominent independent Indian filmmakers on board, and we are wanting to make sure that all indie filmmakers from all different parts of the world are in it, so that it's a very safe space, and it's a very easy place for indie filmmakers to find their fellow collaborators, and find the people for who would be best for their next stage in their project. So if a writer wants to get connected to a producer, he or she, they will be able to do so very easily with the help of our platform. And we are having a lot of other plans also, which are not exactly in the stage for announcement yet, but yeah, so this is the this is the rolling out, or this is the this is the thing which we are rolling out currently. And well, yeah, let's tell the audience also that Ian is also a part of Indie Rise, and he posts there regularly. So join him over there to check out his posts there.
Well, and it's also cool because in addition to filmmakers, I mean, you're really opening this up to all aspects
Yeah.
of film and film appreciation, because there's a film critics section there for
Yes.
people who want to write about films or talk about them, and I'm part of that. So yeah, definitely join in. I mean, we're gonna have links to all of this stuff, and we'll come back around at the end of the episode to remind folks of how they can get involved. But yeah, it's
Correct.
a very cool enterprise you've come up with. This has been quite the year plus for you.
It's the year is just getting started, so let's see how it goes now.
All right. Well, we're going to get started with this month's film, Rani Ki Prem Kahani. I
Yep,
think
you
I
got it
pronounced
right.
that right. All right.
Yes.
And that translates to, is it what, Rocky and Rani in love, or their love story?
Yeah, Rocky and Rani's love story. That is the exact translation. So Prem Kahani means love story, and Rocky or Rani are the two protagonists. So it's Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani.
Now, if you want to go ahead and summarize like the high level
Hmm.
synopsis for this movie, I'd appreciate it, because as with a lot of films that we talk about, there's the kind of what it's about, and then there's a whole bunch else that's thrown in. This is just about another 3 hour movie, and a lot
Yes,
happens. But
this is a 3 hour film, by the way. This is the reason why Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani worked big time in India, is because this was an ode to a lot of the classic Bollywood films and some of the golden Bollywood films, which have kind of shaped the entire trajectory of the industry, like the Bollywood industry to be very specific, and Indian film industry in general. And this film was an ode to a lot of those movies also. So there are many subtle and subtle references, and there are many direct references to many scenes and many films from and many films of the director himself, like Karan Johar, as I told you. Like I am a big fan of that person, and I just love the way he directs, and even his like the way he produces films. So he actually runs the studio Dharma Studios, the like Dharma Productions basically. So so like that is the reason why Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani worked very big time in India. And for a long period of time, there was not like a quintessential Bollywood romantic film. Bollywood is known for its like larger than life romantic films, apart from action. Action is like now, like the action has found its audience, like from 2010 onwards. But before that, it was like the soft lover boy kind of, that soft boy kind of, that image films. And that is where, Dharma Productions used to, it excelled in it. And the actors who are playing are also legends themselves. So the character which is like played by Dharmender, like Dharmender is a legendary actor in Indian film industry. So uh, he's very old now, as you can see. So like even in the film you saw, like basically Dharmender plays Rocky's grandfather, like the character of Rocky's grandfather. So he's a legendary actor himself. And he acted in films like Sholay. So Sholay is another 1970 film, which is which is like one of the biggest Indian films ever made, one of the foundation block films of the Indian film industry. And it stars Amitabh Bachchan and like Amitabh Bachchan and Dharmendra. It's like it's a Western classical kind of, that cowboy story, where like two guys go and uh, kill the dacoit. So it's a very Western style film, and this was the first film in India to be made in a 70mm screen. So again, there's a lot of history over there. So you have to be actually a very big quintessential Bollywood film watcher and film lover to to fully appreciate this film. Because like right now, the stage at which you saw, if you revisit again Rocky or Rani after 10 films, or after, let's say, a year of watching just these mainstream Bollywood films from the 2000s and 70s 80s, then you will again, then when you again see Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani, you will find a lot of those references.
I that sounds like not a challenge, but it sounds like a great idea, is to
Yes.
kind of like look at back some of the history and then look at the film that's paying homage to it. I would
Mm,
love to do that, but I want to just pull over for a second. You're talking
mm.
about 1970s Bollywood westerns?
Yep,
Are these
westerns.
are these westerns in the way that like American westerns think, like cowboys
Ye-
and horses and
yes,
all that
yes,
stuff,
yes.
or is but it's in
uh
an Indian kind of cultural context?
Correct. So basically, what happened was that, again, if we go back in the history, so basically in the period of 1950s and 60s, the kind of films which were being made were like, they were great actors. Devanand and Devanand. These used to be very romantic films, and it was a very soft lover boy kind of that era. Again, a very soft lover boy kind of that era. When it's like the hero is a romantic hero. Okay, so that's how the Bollywood used to work. And however, what happened was, again, in the, like, as I told you also before, that in India, basically, cinema is one of the most powerful mediums for for change or anything. Like, it's one of the most powerful methods of communication, ways of communication. So in 1970s, during that time, when the condition of the country was not that, like, there were people were not finding many jobs, people were very agitated, they didn't, and people were also not, again, relating to the cinema which was being made. So then, two legendary writers, Salim and Javed, like they are a duo. They came up and they made they were the first writer duo who actually fought for getting writers credit on posters. Before that, there was no credits. Right. Okay. So there was the writers weren't created in Bollywood. Like somebody you just find, and they were like very grossly underpaid, and it's a very informal kind of that thing. Like the history of Bollywood is another episode in itself. To be honest, because earlier, the film funding worked in a very different way, with most of the film money coming from the darker shades of the society. Like, you don't want to talk about it, and that's where the money came from, because there was so much money over there. It came from all wrong means, and then it was corporatized. But again, so when Salim Javed came in, they actually wrote this film called as Diwar, which was they wrote the film called Diwar, which was Amitabh Bachchan's first film, and this was the film which was about the angry Indian young man. So, angry young man. So this is the film which made Amitabh Bachchan a superstar. So Amitabh Bachchan, you can imagine, as Shah Rukh Khan of the 70s, and even he's even a superstar today. He's like he's now, he's above 80, but he's a superstar. So even he goes out and waves hand, and there are millions of fans. So that's the kind of the thing. So Salim Javed, they started writing films which were a lot more raw, grounded, and which represented the current state of the youth of India at that if we could put it in that way. And that's how Amitabh Bachchan became a superstar. And then came Sholay. Sholay is also like a 1975 film, 1975 or 74, I'm not remembering exactly, but it's like a legendary film which was about two friends and they go to a village, and then there's this notorious dacoit, which was like, like there's a cultural thing of dakus in these areas. So dakus is basically a dacoit. So they ride in their horses, and and they terrorize the people in the village and stuff like that. And it's about that. So like the film is about like so western in that way. It was inspired by a lot of westerns, and at that time, like all the films used to be a very lavish production. So it took 3 years to make the film. It took just 3 years to make the film, and like most of the time, there used to be parties on set, and so it's a very lavish thing. Anything in India is a very lavish thing. So you can go back to history. So even if you see our, if you see our monuments and palaces over here, they are like 10 times bigger and grander in scale. So if you come to India, India is about scale. It's like a big thing. So everything was very lavish in that way, and it took 3 years to make. And at that time also, the posters and promotions didn't used to happen that much. So once it released it, it released in 1975, right? There is a theater which even does special screenings now for the film. So
Wow.
that is the legacy of Sholay. Then after the Amitabh Bachchan phase was towards its end, that is when the Shah Rukh Khan phase started. So DDLJ and everything, that is when Karan Johar came in. So Karan Johar is from that era.
And
So
that's interesting because you were saying that there was a sort of a soft romantic lead period in
yeah,
the 50s, which kind of gave
yes,
way to the grittier, angry youth of the 70s, and then the sort of
yes,
the romantic comedy drama leads of Shah Rukh Khan in the
yep.
80s, and now
Not
in
in
the
the
two,
80s, in the
or
90s, in
in
the
the 90s,
90s.
sorry, and then in the
Yes,
2000s era, like where we're at now, Shah Rukh Khan is coming back as a very masculine kind of action
yep.
hero
Action
who
star.
also
Yes,
has that kind of sensitivity. So he's blending both
yes.
worlds of what he knows. It's very fascinating because when I look at the cinema culture in America,
Mm.
50s and yeah, the 1950s mostly were very big on westerns, and then in the
Yes.
1970s we got very gritty. The
Mm.
Indian version of getting gritty is to start telling these Western stories, which have very kind of
Yes.
masculine, mythical archetypes. So
Yep.
it's understandable, but I didn't know that. And yeah, I think there's a lot to that in terms of what we have here in Rocky and Rani,
Yes.
because
In
this
fact,
is
there is one section of there is one section of old songs. Like these are like there is one section of old songs medley. So if you remember the scene where Rocky and Rani, they hide, like they take out their grandparents and they, like hiding from others, and make them meet in the park, and then they and
Mhm.
in and behind they are also enjoying, and at the front it's like the grandparents, like Rani's grandmother and Rocky's grandfather. So all these songs medley which play over there, these are all classic Bollywood songs. So which had been again remastered for the film. So it's like there's
Wow.
an entire section which is like an ode to old Bollywood songs.
Well, and this movie seems like a good medley of what we're talking about because you've got tradition coming up
Mm.
against, like a hard stop against like the
Yes.
progressive kind of youth culture, I guess you'd say of today. And
Mhm.
the premise of the film, what is the movie about? Finally, Shashwat, what is Rocky Horror about? We got on a sidetrack of the
Yes.
history of Bollywood, but let's talk about what is the film.
Well, the film is actually, it's a love story between two, like it's a love story between a very orthodox, but at the same time a very rich family, a very rich orthodox family, and a family who is, who's very progressive family. And when their families actually come together during their marriage, and how they resolve their differences, but not really resolve the differences, kind of accept the opposite, and okay. And the film is about that. I think the film is about acceptance of the opposite, as and acknowledging them, that okay, people can be also like this. Basically, I actually had the chance of speaking to the writer of the film, and I did a episode with her. And so like Ishita Moitra, she's the writer of the film, and we had actually had an episode for In Conversations with at IIT. So I had interviewed her, and we had asked her, and so there was, again, that was a entirely different conversation. But the film is about that, and it's basically showing that, again, the two families. One is Punjabi family, and one is Bengali family. So I'm also a Bengali family. I'm also coming from a Bengali family. So it's basically, again, they were kind of playing on the stereotypes that Bengalis are kind of progressive, because in a way that is true. Most of the artwork and cultural, Kolkata is known as the cultural capital of India. So all of the artworks, Satyajit Ray, and films and literature, Rabindranath Tagore, whatever you see, it comes from Calcutta. So the Kolkata. So English. And it is true that in Delhi there are many English professors who are actually from Calcutta and Kolkata. Even during the British period, Kolkata was the capital of the country. So there is a lot of British history also in Calcutta. But so that was there, which was the Rani's family. And Rocky's family is, like a very rich Punjabi North Indian family who is very rich, and they have a very orthodox family in a way, because they all of them, these rituals and everything, these were the, if you actually go in a Indian North Indian, basically more to North Indian side, if you go to any house, these rituals are followed very rigorously, like doing puja, and these are very healthy practices also, like doing puja before, before starting any work. Then and there is always this sense of hierarchy, that you have to respect the elders, even if when they are wrong. And this film also tries to challenge that, like it's not necessarily always true that if your elders always are right. You can question them sometimes. So it kind of showed both of the things. And it's basically a medley, and it's a love story in that, and it's what Karan Johar is known for. And I would talk to you about that one particular scene. There's this one particular scene towards the end where Rocky actually breaks down and tells and confronts them that like, I didn't know that I was being racist. I didn't know that I was making fun of people because of the cancel culture. Whatever I'm going to do, you're going to people are going to object. And I find this very, I don't know what to say. I can't call fat people fat. I can't call X people this, that, this. What should I do? So that was again a very good highlight as to like when it actually becomes cancel culture. So that was also something which the film pointed out into. So I love that as a whole. What about you?
Yeah. It's weird because this film, I think probably more than many of the others we've talked about, is sort of two movies.
Yeah.
Because the first hour plus of the 3 hours, just under 3 hours, is Rocky and Rani kind of coming into each other's lives. He's, as you mentioned, his family is at the top of this like Laddu empire.
Yes,
They are
Ranveer.
fabulously wealthy. He can't
Yes.
because his grandmother, the sort of the matriarch of the family, won't permit him to go anywhere, as he says, without
Yes.
bringing product essentially to
Yep.
hand out to people. He's got these kind
Exactly.
of valets of
Exactly.
boxes of Laddu.
Yes.
And then Rani is she's a news presenter on television. She's very spunky, and she's kind of confrontational. She gets into, I guess, she has someone on like a political figure of some note, and he basically
Yes.
challenges her as far as like women's rights. And
Mm.
it's cool to see these two people kind of come together. They don't really get along, but they're attracted to each other, and things kind of blossom from there. But as there's a great line that's sort of repeated through the film, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's you may be holding the steering wheel in a relationship, but it's the family
Yes,
who's
but the
driving
backseat
from the back
driving
seat.
is
Yes.
yes, the family drives the back. Yes, correct.
And it's a classic story. It goes back to, probably older than Shakespeare, but Romeo and
Yeah.
Juliet, the two
Romeo.
people who love each other, but their families can't stand each other for various reasons. So I love that part of it. Then, but they realize that it's not going to work out no matter how much they love each other, because I guess culturally in India, from what I understand, family is supremely important, and
Yep.
the living arrangements are a big deal. So Rocky's like, I can't live with your family. Ronnie's like, I can't live with your family. How are we going to work this out? So they decide, well, before they get married, they'll test it out. They will essentially swap. She'll go live with his parents, or yeah,
Yeah.
and vice versa for 3 months, I think.
For
And
3 months, yeah.
after that, if it works out, it works out. If not, then they'll agree to figure something out.
Absolutely.
um, but it reminded me there was a TV show in America. I don't know if they had over there. It was called Wife Swap,
Oh,
where
I know.
it
I
was
think
it
I've heard
wasn't
of the name.
yeah,
I think I've
it's
heard of
not
the
what
name.
it's not what most people think, but it is basically this premise where you've got two completely different families, usually from different parts of the country, and for I think a week or 2 weeks, 2 weeks, the wife will go and live with the a different family, and they'll switch and they'll see how their
Hmm.
cultural differences align and
Hmm.
styles of raising family, and that's a lot of what we get here. The
Correct.
second movie is when that happens, because at the end of like the first hour and 10 minutes they make this plan, and like, oh wait,
Yes.
we're going on an entirely different journey here, because it's not just that they switch homes, but we really start to get to know the members of the family individually. We see them kind of collectively in the beginning, but it's mostly about Rocky and Ronnie. In the second movie, it's mostly about the family and how Rocky and Ronnie orbit them and react to them, and that was very
Yes.
interesting. Although,
Yep. Exactly.
and I guess I did like the scene that you mentioned where Rocky is sort of breaking down, talking about like, I can't talk about this, I can't think about this, or I can't think this way. It's his family is very conservative, and then Ronnie's
Hmm.
family is very progressive, as you mentioned. And I'm watching this as an American, thinking, oh, they could make an American version of this movie, left versus right, conservative, Republican
Hmm.
versus Democrat, that kind of thing. So it very much spoke to me in that regard. I guess my issue is that with the family members, I
Hmm.
felt like as we got to know them, we got to know them more as archetypes rather than
Yes.
people, and it was almost the problem of it being too much. Like with
Yeah.
Ronnie's family,
Yes.
you've got the father who, he loves to dance.
Hmm.
I This is going to sound really bad, but I don't know how he was not gay. Because typically, and I think this is something that the film was trying to play with, is like the idea
Hmm.
of gender stereotypes. He loved to
Yes.
do what we might consider, crudely in America, like ballet, or that kind of like
Yes.
a
Yes.
traditional,
Yes.
very feminine mode of dance,
Yes.
and he was into that.
So basically, like what you said, that like he's a Kathak dancer, and Kathak is one of the most oldest and a very very rich classical form of dancing in the. So in India, there are many different forms of dance, like classical dance. So these are all classical dance, and these have been here, like these have been in practice since time immemorial. So it's really it dates back to very 1800, like that's the kind of number. I might be wrong, but and the point of the entire movie was to show that embrace your feminine side but through that character. So as you were telling that there is too much happening, there's too much happening, which is in a way true, because if you actually check it out, each and every character was actually telling a different story. In a way, everybody had their own story, and for the father it was even if I am effeminate, like my feminine side is more than the masculine side, then also, like why should society make fun of me? They should accept me as for who I am. That was the entire. So that is the reason why there is this kind of like there is this show, like there is this scene where they were in the wedding of his best friend, and that is when like there is this he was actually called on stage to dance, and he gets very much humiliated, because those are the people who don't respect that. And then the confrontation scene follows. So that was the entire point of the movie, that embrace your feminine side.
Well, I think, and this is where I sort of raised my eyebrow, because
Mhm.
it didn't seem like a character moment. It seemed like a setup for a screenwriter or a filmmaker who's trying to
Yes.
make a point, because
Yeah.
the father is a very educated man, as are all the people in
Mm.
Ronnie's family.
Yes.
They're very educated, very liberal, as you mentioned. I could not believe that he would go to what he understood to be a very conservative culture wedding, and
Uh,
right?
no, no, no. Again, it's not the conservative culture wedding. So again, wedding is an event in India. Okay, so weddings are a 5-day long event in India, And even though, like, conservative culture, as in, there is a reason why they went to the wedding. It was mostly to show that, like, basically, we are cool, let's, meet their family. So if you are going to a wedding, as opposed to the West, which I'm not very much aware about, that, wedding is morely it's mostly it's a one day thing, right? So
Yeah.
in India, in India it's 5 days. So there's the wedding, which is from the like from the bride's side, then there is a reception, which is from the groom's side, and then there is mehendi. There is a so any wedding
Oh,
you come to in India, it's like $1 million affair, like, for real. So,
sure,
like,
sure.
people
But
spend.
I guess
Hmm.
my point is the fact that he was embarrassed
Yes.
because they were laughing at his style of dance.
Yep.
Would he not have been aware enough to know that the kind of crowd that he was going to that wedding,
Mm.
that
Yes,
family,
yes,
he was
yes.
right?
They were
He's
actually, if you see properly, like, that is, like, the point which they were trying to say is that, when he was actually called on stage for dancing, all of his family members resisted, that, they want to make fun of you. Don't go, don't go, don't go.
right.
They were very much aware, but his father also, there were many scenes that, his father wanted to get back on stage. So he was
I
not like, he was not getting an opportunity, and that's how actually the film justified it, that, that's why
right.
he went there.
But as an audience member, I didn't,
Mm,
and maybe this is a cultural thing, I don't know, but I was watching it thinking, okay, if he went on stage knowing that
mm.
he was about to be humiliated, being warned by his family, and then he goes on stage and he dances and everyone laughs at him, and then he's humiliated, that's not quite the audience's fault, right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, "Well,
Yes.
why are they laughing at me? Everyone told me
Yes.
they were going to laugh at me." I don't know.
Exactly.
So, but that's just one aspect of it.
Mm,
And I made the knock about him. I don't know how he was gay, mostly because from the American context, when we see these kinds of characters coded on film, it turns out that they are, a little bit leaning more heavily into the feminine side to the
mm,
point of,
mm, mm.
being gay. But that's largely a cultural or a pop cultural kind of,
Yes.
media signifier and doesn't necessarily reflect the reality. I mean, you're saying that it's
Mm.
it's a very old and respected, dance form,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I
It's a very
yeah,
old and respected dance form.
and it's cool. I mean, like
And
to
there are
to
many
see
male
him,
dancers. There are many male Kathak dancers. Like,
and
and
I don't
they go through a lot of, a lot of mocking from the sections of the society, because they keep on calling out names and keep on humiliating them. But uh,
I wonder,
yeah, you
it
see.
just I just wonder, like, do you know, is there a way to kind of reclaim that? Because in this movie, Rocky, gets to know the father and they become very good friends, and he even
Mm,
helps support him by engaging
mm,
in this dance.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
wondering if this is some kind of an attempt to, get rid of those stigmas, those stereotypes, and say, hey,
Yes,
it's all
yes.
because as Rocky mentions, he loves to dance too, but his is more of a, I guess, traditionally masculine kind of dance. It's
His
more.
dance is more of, like, like, the kind of dance he does is like, it's what you dance in a club and a pub.
I was just
Like,
gonna say, like, club
yeah.
dancing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a club dance thing. So over there, it's not a classical form of a dance. It's like, you just move your body to the beats, right? You just move your body to the beats. And what he was doing, so basically, there are, like, classical dances having a set of practices, and you have to know the tals, like tals. It's very as similar to classical singing in India. So they go hand in hand. So there is a grammar to it as to how your body moves. If you have seen Life of Pi, I
Hmm.
don't think you've seen Life of Pi, right? So in
Yeah.
Life of Pi, what they were doing at the beginning of the film, like Irfan's wife, actually, like the character of Irfan Khan's wife, like Pai's future wife, when he used to play dholak in the class, in the dance classes. So that was classical dance. So there is mudras, and there's a certain way in which your head moves. So even there is a scene where the girl tells that, like, the tiger is thinking, because her hand is like the tiger's hand is like this. And so there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of culture in that. So that is a very, that's having a particular grammar. It's like, saying this is a classical music's, it's Mozart, you can understand. There is a particular grammar to it. In India also, there is a lot of different styles of classical music also. There's Carnatic classical music. There is something different, and then there are ragas, which are like, which are which kind of, specify the grammar particularly. There are tals. So there are many things. The same way it's there in dance. In ballet also, there's a particular practice. Like if you don't dance ballet at a club, right? So ballet dancer, you can
Right.
understand the way. Yeah, exactly. You can dance in a ballet club, but a club dance is not having any, particular step. And whatever, once you are up and once you're high a little bit, whatever moves your, whatever you can groove to, you can just enjoy that. So that way.
Right. And I think that, like I said, I like the resolution of that,
Mm.
where Rocky comes to understand, because he would have been, I think, in the beginning, the kind of person who would have mocked, Ronnie's father for doing that kind
Yes,
of dance.
correct, correct,
Um,
correct.
right. But okay, the other characters you've got, it's Ronnie's, or I say, Rocky's family.
Yes,
His mother wants to be a singer, and wants to go. She gets kind of an opportunity to go on this pop show, like an idol kind of a show.
yes,
His sister is very much overweight and is made fun of for
yes,
that reason. And she
yes,
also is very good at, like, stock trading and
yes,
business, and she wants to break out. Again, I see all these things. These are like individual movies. I don't
yes,
believe
yes,
that all of
correct,
these
correct.
archetypes are crammed into these two families. Again, like the
Yeah,
movie.
this is actually true. This is actually true. This is actually true. Like in most Indian families, especially most traditional Indian families, women were not allowed to work for a very long time. They were not. Now it's a different scenario, but there's once you're what it was done, like once you're married, like the husband's family, they don't allow the women to actually go out and pursue their dreams. Most of the family, they don't allow it. Now it's slowly changing, but still we can hear sometimes, it's like, as you saw in the film. So this was very relatable to Indians, that very to especially many Indian women, that wow, like this is actually thing that because when I want to also sing, I have to hide and sing, because if my family gets to know of it, then they will say that what are you doing, this is bringing humility to this is humiliation to us.
Now,
So those
is
kind of things were actually true, like it happened.
okay. I'm not doubting that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, as a viewer, it
Mhm.
seemed like there were about 4 or 5 different, like, social messages that the
Yes,
filmmaker
correct,
wanted
correct,
to
there were.
tackle, and they put them
Yeah.
all into these different characters. I wouldn't
Yes,
mind watching a movie where there was a family where there's a woman who wanted to be a singer, and she couldn't do it, or
yes,
a movie
there is
where
a film
there's a
actually about that, there is
I'm
a
sure
film,
there is, but I'm
Cigarette
saying, like,
Superstar.
like the well, okay, the overweight girl who wants to be a businesswoman, the
Mm.
housewife who wants to be a singer, the one guy who wants to dance but he can't dance in front of everybody, the other guy who wants to dance but he can't show his father. Like, all of these things, it's crammed into this movie,
Yep,
and
exactly,
at
that
the
is
at
true,
the
that
end
is
of it
absolutely
at
true.
the end of it, I was like, "Wait, I thought this was about two people falling in love, not like, hey, let's change society and everybody's, everyone's got their
Yes,
own secrets and they have to rise above." Like, I don't know what I'm watching here anymore. I gotta
correct,
say,
correct.
I didn't like that aspect of the screenplay, but I loved the performances and I loved these characters. So I think that's a
Yeah.
lot to say about how the movie unfolds. So that's why I kept, after that first hour, after probably the first 2 hours, when they really start getting into these
Mm.
characters, I kept getting pulled out and, like, wondering, like, does this feel real? Not quite. But okay, now there's a new dance number. I love the
Yeah.
sets. This is an amazing moment.
Yes.
So I said before we started recording, this reminded me a lot of the Barbie movie, a film
Yep.
that I did not like the Barbie movie pretty much at all, aside from possibly the aesthetics, partially because I felt like, again, it's another message film, and that message is not very flattering to the people that I think are trying to get the message across. Like that whole speech at the end where America Ferrara is saying it's literally impossible to be a woman, and she rattles off all of these things. I'm like, are you empowered? I thought the message of the movie was empowerment, and celebrate being a woman, but it's also this contradiction of everything's terrible. I'm like, is it really terrible? This movie is not set in the 1960s. It's set in 2023. It's very confused. So I understand
Mm.
watching Rocky and Ronnie. a movie where about a culture that maybe, I don't want to be insensitive here, but based on what you're saying, is coming into a lot of these ideas about liberation and about kind of like
Mm.
separating the traditional norms and
Yeah.
roles and breaking out of those. But
Yes.
when I watch something like Barbie, I'm like, this hasn't really been true for about 30 years, or more.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just a bit of a bridge that I had to cross in appreciating Rocky and
Yes,
Ronnie.
and as I told you, like it's mostly it is for the Indian audience. Like this
Yeah.
is a film which you saw. This is mostly for the Indian audience. All the films which you had seen before, it could be kind of like you could get it in a very different context also. But this is a film which is like Indian mainstream in its truest form. Like this is like the proper masala Bollywood film, which people actually and people it was a super hit in India because a film like this released after a very long time after many years, because there were more films which were much niche focused and one single topic kind of the film. So this is kind of the RRR equivalent in that way. RRR was a lot of RRR was it was a lot of drama and a lot of glory and the scale. This was what was this film represented Bollywood of the 2000s, like that old kind of that Bollywood. The songs, there are 5 to 6 different songs. So Bollywood was like that. Each average Bollywood's film's length was 3 hours 11 minutes, 3 hours 20 minutes. Some of them had two intervals, like two intermissions in between. So, and because film for Indians, it's first is entertainment. That's number one, and second is it has to be an event kind of the film, and there has to be big stars, and there has to be songs and dances, and it was a quintessential Bollywood film, as I told you.
And and that aspect of it, I really did enjoy. This is one of the most musical movies I think we've talked
Yep.
about. And
Yes.
what I loved is it's not just the music that moves the story along; it represents what the characters are feeling. Like the grandfather,
Yes.
one of the key aspects we didn't talk about in terms of the story is how Rocky and Ronnie got together. It turns out
Yes.
that their grandparents back in the 1970s had
70s.
sort of a brief affair.
Yes.
They kind of fell in love over poetry, and
Yep.
but they couldn't be together because of familial obligations.
Hmm.
um, Rocky's grandfather is, he suffered, like sometime after that, he suffered a fall or some kind of an incident,
Yes.
and
The fall. Yes.
he's pretty much catatonic, and he has to be taken care of. As the movie opens, they're at some kind of an event, party, and
Yes.
he feels like he recognizes someone in the room as was it Jamini, um,
Yes.
and
Germany.
he makes his way over to her and he starts like kind of grabbing her, and everyone's like, what are you doing, and why are you talking, what is happening? And
Yes.
it turns out there's this big mystery, and Jamini turns out to be Ronnie's grandmother. Rocky and Ronnie
Yes.
hatch a plot to get these two together with the hopes that maybe the grandmother can bring something out of
Yes.
the grandfather. Now, uh, Rocky's grandmother is
Yep.
the matriarch of the family, as we mentioned, the head of this Laddu empire, and she is a very interesting, very complex character, because she
Yes.
is what we would see traditionally, I think, in movies as the patriarch of the family, very
Yep.
overbearing, very much in control of everything and everyone. So when we talk about this movie asking people to lean into their feminine side, that's a very interesting question,
Yes.
because you're like, what
Yes.
does
That's a
that
very
mean?
interesting thing. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Because it is true, in a way, the like that thing, it's a very ironical situation, because the entire mentality of them was a very patriarchal mentality, but it was being run by one woman. So it was a very big irony in itself. And there is also a scene where I think, like, I might be mistaken, I had seen the movie long time back, but when even Rani tells her that you are a woman yourself, and why are you kind of, in fact, that advertisement where there is this one scene of, when they were doing the advertisement for the laddu, and it got very much outrage and hate in social media. And then Rani came in, and they had they changed the entire advertisement, like, by saying, because it was portraying women as women have to stay at house and just work for their husbands. And like her grandmother, like Rocky's grandmother was his grandmother, Rocky's grandmother was basically saying that, this is exactly, this worked in the 80s, this worked in the
Yeah.
90s, why is it not working now? And again, this is again a nod to a lot of the advertisements and a lot of the films which are being made currently, and this hate against these actors and directors in social media is something which is very prevalent in India, like the trolling part of it. And Karan Johar personally also gets trolled a lot. So it was all a nod to that.
Well, and I can understand, like, I watching that advertisement, it is
Mhm.
very stereotypical, like the happy,
Yes.
housewife baking at
Yeah.
home and the husband comes home and has a ladoo. But then you look at the commercial that they put out, and what it
Mm.
is, it's very much a swapping of the roles because the
Yes.
husbands are these glaringly effeminate men, like sashaying around the kitchen
Mhm.
and acting like stereotypical women. Now, that is almost another subplot where you could say, well, was there outrage from the
Mm.
public, from the men who are like, well, now you're portraying us as being stereotypical and we don't like this. So that could have been its other movie, like the company that
Yes,
tries
that's
to put
another
out an
movie. That's
advertisement
another
that
movie.
they just can't win because they can't figure it out
Yes.
because
Yes. Yes.
people are not cartoons. They're not one or the other. And that's I guess that's the idea of learning to get in touch with your feminine side. I'm, totally fine with that because I think
Mm.
people have aspects of both in their personalities. Nobody is one way or the other. But
Correct.
it felt like, and this is where I felt the heavy hand of the creative team behind this movie, is the lessons learned are primarily all being taught to the more traditional conservative people. Like, I don't know
Mm.
exactly what, aside from don't make fun of people because they're
Mm.
not as educated as you are, I don't know quite what the lessons are for Ronnie's family.
Uh,
Rocky's
yes,
family
Ronnie.
learns that it's okay to cry. It's okay
Mm.
to, not control everybody. It's
Yes.
okay to
Yes.
let women out of the house. What does Ronnie's family learn? It felt very one-sided to me.
Yeah, that's a very good point which you brought out. Like, I think Rani's family has learned the lesson that, you like, you should not make fun of the educated, of the people who are not educated as you. You should not yourself feel, entitled that, they were kind of, in a way, they were very snobby about the class of the people they were in. So basically, if you see the scene where they are having a cultural function in their house, where the family is even ashamed to introduce Rocky to them
Yeah.
because he was not having that kind of, cultural background. So that was again a very big lesson for Rani's family, because, you should not do that. But later they were embracing him, that, he's singing a Bengali song, and there is this scene also later in the film where there. And I think, like, it can be kind of justified, because uh, his what I think is that Rani's family was also very much, they had a growth mindset. So it won't be very difficult to convince them about one particular thing, until and unless it was, like, very much archaic or something which was seen as backwards. So I think, like, even there was an interview with the director after the film release, that what would, like, if once Rocky and Rani married in the last scene, where would they have lived? And uh, he said that, they wouldn't have lived in anybody's house. They would have moved to their own house.
Hmm.
So that was the most probable, because, and Rani's family would have been more than open to do so. That's what again I think, than Rocky's family, because Rani's family is having that mindset of, okay, let's, if it is a change, let's look at it that way. Until unless there is a character like Rocky who is kind of beneath their standards. So I think the most important lesson for them was the standards and snobbiness, which I told you. Apart from, not make fun of people who are there, and kind of.
I think what would have been a nice bit of balance, because again,
Mm.
I feel like there was a lot more finger wagging and lesson teaching to the traditional family than there was to the
Mm.
progressive family, and that you can
Yeah,
make that movie, that's fine. But me as an
correct,
audience
correct.
member, I'm sitting here thinking, well, yes, being progressive and breaking every tradition, that is a way to
Yes.
live, but there is also a reason that traditions survive. Not all of them are great, but just because something is traditional doesn't mean it's bad. I think what would have been interesting is
Yep.
if there had been a member of Rani's family who had said, you know what, I would like to get settled down and get married and raise a family and, just be a more traditional, spouse.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That is a.
And what would that do to Ronnie's family dynamic? We're like, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, why can't I? You said I can do whatever I want. I want to do the traditional thing.
Yes, that is a very good. That's something which even I did not think about. So, yeah, that's definitely, again, that's definitely a new film in
Yeah,
itself.
there's
That's
so many movies that could come out of this one. But
yes.
one thing I want to talk about is the cast. Okay,
Yeah.
Ranveer Singh. The
Hmm.
last time I saw him, he was playing a very different character. We talked about Padmavat. I think it was last year. Another a
Yeah.
great movie, but he was like this. He was a aggressive like
Yes.
barbarian. He was the villain of that piece, and he was so terrifying. Here,
Yes.
he's Did you ever see the movie Zoolander from like 20 years ago?
Yeah. I saw it long back.
He reminds his character Rocky in this movie, especially in the beginning, he grows and becomes like more of a real fleshed out character by the end. But in the beginning,
Yes.
he's like the Indian Zoolander. He's completely oblivious. He's very pretty
Yeah.
and styled and wearing the latest fashion. He's
Yes.
obsessed with fashion. He doesn't know anything. People have to constantly explain what basic words mean to him.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
and then you've got Alia Bhatt playing
Yes.
Rani, and
Yeah.
she
But
is
yeah.
completely charming and beautiful and feisty. And I love their love story. Um,
Yeah. Correct.
yeah, that kind of
It's a
chemistry.
very. It's a like the as I told you, the cast was one of the very big reasons as to why the film worked. Like everybody wants to, again, in India, people go to the theaters to see the actor first and the story later. So it's more about who is the star playing in the film. So when the stellar star cast was announced, the hype was automatically there. Like it didn't need any sort of marketing in that way. So people just wanted to, and the songs work really well. So there's the song "Tum Kya Mile," which happens when Rani goes to Kashmir for the reporting, and they had a fight with Rocky before again reuniting. So that song was a big hit because it was again an ode to Shah Rukh Khan's old songs, like Shah Rukh Khan's 2000 songs from Suraj Hua Madhyam, and which was from K3G, a same film which same film which Karan Johar directed, K3G. So it was a like the so basically in Indian cinema, Yash Chopra, like who is a legendary film director, he passed away in 2012, but he started the Yash Raj Film Studio, and he actually made this trademark, songs of lip sync songs. So basically, these are lip sync songs where they go to a dreamy location, and there's this chiffon sari, and the hero comes in, and then that kind of it happens, and then it was further, its popularity even grew 10x when Shah Rukh Khan came in DDLJ, and yeah, so basically, it's conditioned that this way. Even for me, whenever we see field of a mustard field, we always think that there is Raj standing there with his arms wide open, and the girl is running towards her, and it's the way we think, those who grew up watching Bollywood, and those who grew up like me watching Bollywood, we think like that. So it was again not to that, because the kind of songs which were happening in the film for the last 5-6 years was not lip sync exactly. It was more either playing in the background, or they were in certain situation where singing a song would have justified that particular situation, um, as opposed to the previous older songs, which were like, they were talking and then just cut to a very different exotic location, and the hero and heroine are they're just singing songs. This was exactly like that. They cut to, and she's seeing all these, in her imagination, that these dream sequences and stuff like that, which is why again it was a very big hit. So personally, I went to the theaters to watch that song, because that was my calling. I want to hear that in the theaters. It was I love the song.
Well, I love that song too, but I also love that sequence because as you mentioned, it's her kind of fantasy sequence,
Yes,
and it's not just
yes.
her singing on this, snowy mountaintop. Everything is color coordinated. I mean,
Yep.
when she imagines walking through a woods that is not snow covered, everything's very brown. You
Yes.
notice Rocky leaning up against a tree wearing like a brown blazer, and you just notice him because
Yes.
you see his like I think blue jeans or something like
Yeah,
that or
yeah.
black pants, and he kind of
Correct, correct,
walks out. it's
correct.
there's so much artistry all throughout this film. There's this
Yes.
great sequence, which I think it was when Rani's father ends up dancing with
Yes,
Rocky in
Dola
front of people
Redora.
in
Yes,
that
yes.
red hall, and he mentioned, I think he said, this goes back to that kind of cultural snobbery thing. At
Durga
least that's what
Puja.
I point up. Right. Well,
Yes,
he said, normally we don't do the Bollywood thing, but tonight we're going to
yes,
do something different. And they do this great dance number in this beautiful red hall. I think
yes.
at one
So
point
that is
one of the
again,
jokers
you
is
should
wearing blue.
when you come to Calcutta in India during the Durga Puja time, you will see red halls like this. These are known as pandals everywhere across the city, everywhere, like literally everywhere. Like even the place where I live in, the decoration is like this. Not exactly. It's not that it's to be red, but it's also known as the city of joy, Calcutta. And Durga Puja is it's even though it's a puja, it's a religious thing, but it's more of a cultural thing. My entire film's makings journey started from Durga Puja, as I told you before also. So again, it's again a note to that. And for Bengalis, Durga Puja is a very important part of their life. Like every year, no matter, all Bengalis might be outside the country in any part of the world, but during Durga Puja, everybody comes back home and celebrates it together,
That's
and it's a
beautiful.
grand thing.
Well, you know, the sense of togetherness and community that really comes out. Spoiler alert: Rocky's grandfather passes away at the end of the film, and
Yeah.
they have a beautiful funeral. Again, color scheme, everything is in presented
Yes.
in white or shades of white,
Yes.
and it's a
Karan Johar
lovely.
is in fact very famous for that. Like the he's very famous for the grand sets. Apart from Sanjay Leela Bhansali's, whose Padmavat you saw in Padmavat also, it was like very grand sets, and even like Karan Johar even acknowledged Sanjay Leela Bhansali as an inspiration for that. So you are very right in pointing that out. So all this color coordination and especially the ending sequence where they are getting married, it's all inspired from Sanjay Leela Bhansali. So the director who made Padmavat. So you've got that right.
I love it. But yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, we were talking just now about the fantasy kind of sequence
Hmm.
and the lip syncing, and it was a point I had started to make before we got into the plot about the grandparents. But one of the musical numbers, maybe even a couple of them, involve Ronnie's grandfather or Rocky's grandfather getting up out of his chair,
Yes.
singing, serenading.
Correct,
But it's
correct.
so touching because it's like he's trapped in this body, but this is what he's feeling. This is the him
Yes,
getting in touch
exactly.
with these romantic feelings that are being reawakened from 40 years ago. It's just, again, I'm watching this movie, even though I had some issues with it, I would
Yes.
still watch this movie over the next 5 American romantic comedies because there's so much to think about and look at and experience in
Yes,
this movie. It really gets to what it means to be a human being in love. And I think that
yes.
it's rare that we see that writ large. I want to
Correct.
see more movies like this.
Correct, correct. Wow, that is great to hear. So, that's actually great. And this is Karan Johar directing a film after 7 years. So he's a producer also. He produces 4 to 5 films every year. But the last film he directed was in 2016, Eid Ila Mushkil. Before that, it was in 2010, which is My Name Is Khan, and with again Shah Rukh Khan. And Shah Rukh Khan has been in all movies of Karan Johar except this one. Like in Air Mushkil also, he was there in a cameo, but for this film, he was not there. He actually taught, like, one interesting trivia. Shah Rukh Khan is the master of lip sync songs. So he made it popular. So he actually mentored Alia Bhatt and even Shah Rukh Khan's daughter Suhana Khan for, even though she's not in the movie, for a different film, like how to do the lip sync song. Because what happens in lip sync is when you see the film, it's in slow motion, right? So when they shoot it in very high frames. So it's shot at close to 90 frames per second to 120 frames per second. So what happens is when they do the playback in the shoot, it plays at 120 fps. So your lip movement has to be exactly that. So you have to you have to sing like that, but you have to keep the expressions intact, so that when they do the playback in the editing, it automatically gets slow motion and it looks like you're singing properly. So this is something Shah Rukh Khan is a master of. And again, Indian films have do this because that you have to sing at 90 frames per second. So
That's amazing. I also love that because I thought about you when I was watching this because SS Rajamouli gets name checked and Shah Rukh
yeah,
Khan or SRK gets, I think, 2 references in the movie. So he's not
yes,
in the movie, but he's in the movie. So
yeah,
that
he's in the movie. He's in the movie. Yeah. He's in the, and it's not two. It's more than two. In fact, like there is a lot of scenes
oh,
where
okay.
where like in during the first song, not the first, the second song where it's like Jhumka Gira De, that song. That is again a reference, like which happens in the wrestling arena where they first meet over there, which it happens. So the song which happens there, again, there is a reference to an old film of SRK, again, which Karan Johar directed. So there are many references for SRK like that.
Why did Karan Johar take 7 years off or between films? Do you know what is there a
Oh,
story behind that?
that is a very big story. He faced a lot of flack. Like there's a lot of negativity around him, and there's a lot of issues. And again, that's again I think for the better of the time when there's a very big controversies happening, and he does a show which is known as Coffee with Karan, and it's that show is about, like, it's the steamy part of Bollywood. So very Bollywood celebrities come in, and they share the gossips and secrets. So I love watching that show, by the way, and there have been many controversies about it. So I'm a fan of Coffee with Karan, and they recently concluded season 8 also. So if you get time, you should watch Coffee with Karan also. So you could actually get into like the
Is that on is it on YouTube? Can I find it
no,
there?
it's there in Disney Plus. It's there on Disney Plus.
Really?
Yeah, it's there
Wow.
on Hotstar.
Okay.
It's there on Disney Plus.
But no, it's interesting because you're talking about these controversies and everything, and it almost feels like even though, again, Rocky comes from the more traditional, call it
Yeah.
conservative family, that speech about being canceled almost seems like it's the director talking about, well,
Yes,
I can't
I
say
told
anything,
you,
right?
like,
Everyone's coming after me. Yeah,
exactly. That is what I
Yeah.
told you. Like it was more of a personal call out than the character telling about, like, confronting about it. So you should watch that show sometimes. And again, there is like, since Karan Johar made his first film with Shah Rukh Khan. So Karan Johar was an assistant director for Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, where Shah Rukh Khan was like, okay, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge released in 1995. It is the longest running film in the history of movies. It even runs till date in Maratha Mandir in Bombay. You can even go and buy a ticket and watch it. It's like running from 1995 till now. That is the level of.
We got to talk. We got to talk about that at some point. I
Yeah,
got to see the
DDLJ.
longest running film. Yeah.
DDLJ. So like it runs even like, and it's a full house show every single day. It's a full house show, kind of that thing. So that's the craze of Shah Rukh Khan, and Karan Johar was an assistant director over there. And Karan Johar is from a film family also. So like his father was a film director, and during the making of that DDLJ, they actually came up with Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and Shah Rukh Khan helped Karan Johar, shape up like the entire film and make it. And since then, they two are they both of them are some of the closest friends, one of the closest friends in the industry. And in every Coffee with Karan's first episode, it's always Shah Rukh Khan first 2 episodes. So Coffee with Karan's season 1 started in 2006. The first episode was Shah Rukh Khan. However, he did not appear in 2000 in the season 7 and 8, but before that, every season Shah Rukh Khan was there.
Well, now I definitely have to watch it because Coffee with Karan with Shah Rukh Khan sold.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you again. Thanks for recommending this movie. I wasn't quite sure what this was when you said, "Oh, we should watch this." I'm like, this looks very different from a lot of what we talked about.
Yes.
But I'm glad, and I want to explore more from what this genre or the films that this movie is paying homage to.
Yes.
I want to check that out. So, but and we'll definitely, as we mentioned at the top of this, it's IndieRise and Kicking the Seat present Spotlight India. So we've got way more films to talk about, and a lot of cool things coming up in the near future. So again, Shashwat, tell people how they can get involved in IndieRise.
So it's very simple. So there is like the link of the community, I think, which will be also pasted in the link in the description below. So you can just join it, and there's just a couple of questions as to why do you want to join the community, and then you can just simply join it. We will be kind of rolling out memberships soon, but the main community is going to be free to use. There will be some sort of paid perks to it too, but yeah, it's going to be free to use, and you can join it. It's very simple to join. It's just like doing so with any app or any website you go to.
And you can find us there. Most importantly,
yeah. You can find Ian there, so you can always message him there also. And there are also, apart from Ian, like there are many indie filmmakers over there, especially from India. So you can join there, and Ian also is like he expresses his opinions. And by the way, I did not tell you, there were many new members who were actually asking, they wanted to be about, they wanted to know about film criticism. And like they because they saw your posts over there, so you got few new film critic enthusiasts too.
All right. Well, that all the better. So, thank you very much for again this conversation. Thank you for inviting me to IndieRise, folks. If you're at all interested in anything related to film, filmmaking, film criticism, all aspects of it, check out IndieRise. You'll be able to find your people and make some cool things that maybe we'll end up talking about on this show someday. So
Correct.
very excited. All right, Shashwat, thanks. Do you have anything else to say before we get out of here?
Not really. So, like, again, thank you for for you. Like, it's the show. This is the show you started also. So thank you for inviting me again. And now that it's, again, as I told in the beginning, it's a co-production now. But and I'm looking forward to the next film which we'll be talking about, and hopefully bring some more indie filmmakers on board with us also, and talk with them about their filmmaking process and everything.
Yes, yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you. You're an incredible guide on this journey, and I can't wait to see what comes next. So, Shashwat Mookherjee, thanks again. I'm Ian Simmons from Kicking the Seat, and yeah, till next time, whenever that is, whatever that is. Thank you very much, and take care.